Ciao a tutti, it's me, Babza Jr. Last month I finally got a chance to take on the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC in Elden Ring using my Malenia faith build that you got to see me show off in my last video. Here, I'll talk you through my experience and how I did. First up, we speak to Leda inside Mog's boss room and touch Miquella's wrinkly arm to enter the DLC. I was a bit gutted that there's no cutscene, not gonna lie, but this landscape is absolutely lush, so it kinda makes up for it. This game is so beautiful. We take care of a heavy armor knight enemy with some nice stabs from our katana. This went pretty smooth, but I was soon brought down to earth by this furnace golem. That's a lot of damage right there. This guy featured a lot in the trailers for the DLC, so I was keen to take him down, and before you ask, no, I don't find this thing cute, even though I did take some time thinking before I made my mind up. I decided, because he was such a big enemy, that Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike was the key to victory. And it was, but how much health does this thing have? I landed a total of 10 fully charged Ancient Dragon Lightning Strikes by the time he got up after being staggered, and he was still alive. I managed to land one last one, which finished him off, of course, taking no damage myself whatsoever in the process. After some more exploring, I found myself in Bayle Tower, where I used a very unnecessary Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike to take out these little scorpions, but it made me feel good, so that's all that matters. I had a sword dance fight with this big knight, but it seems his dance skills were just stronger. Fucking Billy Elliot here. It was probably because of his massive poise. With some careful dodges, I slashed away until proccing a blade right at the end to bring him down. This DLC really likes dancing enemies, doesn't it? This guy just keeps on spinning right round, baby, right round, like a record, baby, round, 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 round. But we power through and bleed him out. Appropriately, the boss at the top was also dancing. The dancing lion did prove kinda challenging. My strategy was to try and hit it with Scarlet Aonia for the best rot damage in the game. But if you ever used this incantation before, you know it leaves you pretty open for a while. I was most definitely gonna get hit. But once he was in, I knew he was guaranteed to take off nearly half his health over time. I initially tried Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike, but after dying when he was so close to death, because I am skilled like that, I decided to switch and use Giant's Flame once the rot was in. Giant's Flame is a little shorter range than I like, but the damage is good. The boss has a lot of crazy attacks, and trying to get my head around all of them was as big of a challenge as putting up with my husband's puns. There's so much going on, it can't be hard to read his movements. I found myself in the classic Bab situation where he was one hit from death, but he launched an all assault where I couldn't seem to get an opening. With no flask left, and me being a one hit from death myself now, I managed to land one more Giant's Flame to put an end to the first Remembrance boss of the run. Classic Babs victory right there. Look at this guy! You're so cute! Shame I have to backstab him and kill his dog. Before heading to the next story area of the DLC, I explored a bit and found this Black Girl Knight. This was a good opportunity to show a combination of faith build and Malenia. The strategy here was to wait for him to come at me and then cast Burn of Flame to pop him up in the air. After which, I would immediately use Waterfowl Dance to land loads of hits and eventually proc bleed. It was going pretty smooth, up until the last very few moments where he seemed to get really angry and went on a rampage, but thankfully I recovered and my swing hit him before he hit me, ending this duel. What does Elden Ring love? Dragons, and of course the DLC is no exception as we now encounter a Ghost Flame Dragon. A big target standing in water? Perfect for Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike. I dodged this stomp and immediately cast it, actually breaking his poise and allowing me to land one more to bring this winged beastie down with no much issue. I had a little explore around the area and found a minor dungeon. I always love finding this. The dungeon was filled with these disgusting looking jar enemies, which was a shock to the system because I naturally assumed that all jars were cute. Oh, how wrong I was. This is a direct opposite to my cute little friends from Jarburg. No, they're not the same thing. Stop saying that. The boss of this dungeon was this annoying little guy, dancing around with a magic sword. Luckily, we were able to land the Aonia on him, blast the hell out of him with Giant's Flame, get some damage with Waterfowl, but then unfortunately we ran out of FP because this was my first attempt and I'd just done a whole dungeon. Thankfully it was just one hit from death, so a quick slash ended this guy. At least he dropped a good amount of runes. I headed across a bridge to a giant-looking castle, which appeared to be the next way to go, taking out this troll knight on the bridge on the way by filling him full of lightning. The Scarian knight in the castle did some crazy damage, taking off half my health with each hit. This was a tough fight and it was very close, but with the rod from Ionia and some slashes, we took him out. The boss of Castle Ensis is Relana, the Twin Moon Knight. I loved this fight, even though it was pretty tough. She's very aggressive and has a lot of attacks that reach right across the arena. I was determined to use the Ionia in most fights in the DLC to keep with the Malenia theme, but finding the right time here was tricky. On the winning attempt, we got away with it with minimal damage. But what to use next? Well, she's standing in water, so lightning seemed to be the best call. But given she's a smaller enemy and very fast, I opted for Lightning Spear purely for its quick cast time. Damage was still pretty good. The most dangerous attack for me, at least, was the giant magic sword she does, particularly the horizontal swing. Thankfully, I was able to dodge it this time round, jump and moon attacks and land a few more spears to defeat the second remembrance boss of the run. But what would an Elden Ring DLC be without catacombs? Oh joy! Saying that, this one turned out to hold a treasure which would be very useful for the rest of the run. Knight's Lightning Spear, an upgraded version of Lightning Spear. Okay, so I said useful for the rest of the run, but it definitely wouldn't help against this lightning using Death Knight. But, what happened here? Did I break him? Why isn't he moving? Is he too scared of the Bab's power? Oh, there we go. Burn of Flame was really helpful here once again, as he mostly does horizontal swings, which the cast animation of Burn of Flame let us duck under. It does a lot of damage though, so timing is very important. Burn of Flame is really underrated honestly, and helps us to kill this pretty annoying boss. We next ended the Cerulean Coast, an absolutely beautiful area housing another Ghost Flame Dragon. As it was raining, I decided to try Knight's Lightning Spear. Landing a full charge 1 on the head does a good amount of damage, and landing 3 actually is good enough to poise break him. I actually summoned my little jar friends here who didn't do that much honestly, but they're just too cute. This dragon summons minions, so I was hoping that the jars might distract them a little bit, so I could focus solely on the dragon. After landing a few more spears to the head, I poise broke him again and landed a critical stab with my katana. With a third poise break landed, I got hit by his attack at the same time and thought there was no way I'd make it to his head in time to land a critical hit. But through some frantic rolling, I somehow did, because I'm that good. And let's face it, I like living life on the edge. So stabbed him right into the skull to bring him down. Knight's Lightning Spear is honestly pretty broken. As well as good damage, the fact he can poise break semi-consistently and the fact that you can fire it quite fast when you don't charge it makes it very useful for a lot of enemies. Worth mentioning, earlier I'd found Shadowkeep but decided not to proceed inside just yet. The reason this is significant? Well, going there gives this message, meaning we were able to enter Stone Coffee Fissure with no issues. Here we help some birds forget how to fly before encountering Putrescent Knight. Yeah, about that. This guy was quite challenging. To be fair, our damage is really good, but sometimes I overestimated the range of Knight's Lightning Spear. Seriously, this looks like he should have hit. When we get frostbitten, his hits take off over half our health. Interestingly, he can be rotted. I think he's immune to every other status effect, but the Ionia is still worthwhile, thankfully. Casting as he comes towards you at the start at just the right time is crucial to land it. After that, there's good openings from some of his attacks. The horse attacks seem kinda crazy initially, but once you know how to dodge it, he leaves himself quite open for a fully charged Knight's Lightning Spear, taking over a huge chunk of his health. There's also just enough time to land one as he starts his phase 2 attack, still giving you time to dodge the flame waves. After the horse attack again, I landed a fully charged and an uncharged one, leaving him pretty close to death. As he prepared to do the flame waves again, I took a risk and charged up another one. I took a hit, barely surviving, but my spear landed, ending the fight in a very close trade. Another Remembrance boss defeated. Did I mention that I like making a habit of winning when I have barely 1 HP left? Next up, it was time to do some exploring in Scadowalters, where we killed a martial arts man, played Tekken with some of the locals, and then got to fight what Baron's Castle and I agree is the cutest DLC boss, the Golden Hippopotamus. So, it's probably worth mentioning something about Knight's Lightning Spear here. See that damage? Over 5,000 damage? Oh, I'm not even fully optimized for damage. I could be holding the Gravelstone Seal in my right hand as well as using the Lightning Scorpion Charm amongst other things. Of course, the Hippo is in water here, but still that is some huge damage. This cute boy sadly is defeated pretty quickly. Rest easy, my cuddly friend. I made my way through Shadow Keep, waterfowling enemies in my wake. I found a hidden path, and I ended up taking a relaxing coffee ride downwards into a new area. My path eventually led me down into some more catacombs with probably my least favourite DLC boss at the end. Jory, Elder Inquisitor. I hate this boss. Between the constant projectile spam and the constant summoning in the second phase, this is a nightmare. Now, the positives. It can be rotted and he also stands in water, so Knight's Lightning Spear does huge damage. This time I did use the Gravelstone Seal in my right hand because I just really wanted to kill this guy. On the winning attempt, I actually ended up just destroying his summons and then smashing him with several spears in a row to end it quickly. Fuck you, Jory. Fuck you. In the creepy abyssal woods up ahead, some guy handed me a defeat which I was pretty mad about. I had zero respect for this guy, so the next time round I spammed him to the ground with a barrage of spears. Fuck this guy also. Sadly, I couldn't do the same to these Bloodborne enemies. Nope, it was time for a stealth section. After sneaking past the first couple, a third one did come after me in a darkened area, but somehow I was able to heroically escape by repeatedly running in one direction. After getting lost for a while, I finally ended up in Midra's Manse, the main dungeon of the area. This place was cool, but I found the boss to be a bit of a headache. My husband told me that Midra here actually has the most health of any of the DLC bosses, and I really felt that. My favourite thing to do with this silly little first phase is waterfowl dancing right away. Not gonna lie, I felt really good about that. For the actual fight, I found that running at him and around him right away was a good way to avoid his initial madness blasts, allowing me some time to land Diaonia. I take some hits of course, but the rot is worth it. I actually stuck with Uncharged Knight's Lightning Spears here for the quickness, as getting hit by his madness beams is not fun. I also figured out jumping was quite a good approach for the shockwaves after some of his slashes in phase 2. In the last section of his health, I did try some charge spears but got punished. I managed to survive just long enough, firing off a couple more spears including a charge one as he did the AoE attack before finally this tough boss fight was over. That was pretty stressful, not gonna lie. Anyway, back to Shadow Keep. The toughest enemies here are these Fire Knights. What I like to do is give them a couple of lightning spears to weaken them and then finish them off with a graceful waterfowl. My husband always tells me platforming in these games is my biggest weakness, but I was determined to prove him wrong. Things were looking good until the Fire Knight shot me in mid-air, causing me to fall and break both my legs. You know what? Have a fuck you too. So, have I ever mentioned that I don't like snakes? Well, I don't, so you can't imagine what I thought of Messmer. I actually had the closest possible death. He and I died at the same time, but his death animation with him speaking didn't finish before I died and it faded to black, meaning it didn't count. To say I was mad would be an understatement. So let me show you how Malenia handles Messmer. Messmer is probably one of the most difficult bosses to land the Aonia on because of that annoying grab attack he can pull out. The best RNG you can opt for is he does the charging stab which will go over your head like this as you bloom out the Aonia. Healing is also really tough to do without being punished, so the best chance is at the end of one of his combos, which I found are best avoided by dodging into him like this. It was definitely one of the bosses whose attacks I struggled dodging the most though. I managed to land the Aonia again after his opening attack, surviving the combo he started up and getting away for a chance to heal. I found the snake attacks pretty tricky to figure out, but he does leave a big opening at the end for a fully charged Knight's Lightning Spear, which does take off a good chunk. The multi-snake attack is just chaos. And even though I landed a charged Knight's Lightning Spear at the end, he quickly went for the grab, which I just barely dodged. That would have been an instant game over. I dodged one final snake attack and landed another spear to take out the Impaler for good. By the way, I haven't mentioned it yet, but I was a Shadow Blessing level 7 for these two fights, which I learned afterwards is apparently lower than the recommended level. Maybe that's why I struggle with them a bit. And interestingly enough, my husband thought it would be a good idea mentioning this after the fights. But our adventures in Shadowkeep weren't over yet. We still had the church district to explore. Nailed this platforming, by the way. Didn't fall in the water once. Fuck you too, husband. After some more exploring through this area, I was able to drain the water, opening a whole new load of stuff to explore. After absolutely destroying an ulcerated tree spirit, it was time to head below and fight a sunflower. For this, it was time to test out a new incantation, Fire Serpent. Just look at that damage there. It also homes in on the head, which is the weak point for this boss. This thing still caused me some trouble though. I struggled to figure out how to avoid some of its crazy attacks. Thankfully, I added a bleed resistance talisman at the start. I kinda felt like I survived this more than I actually won because I took a lot of hits, but thankfully I had the firepower to outdamage this thing and finally put it down. But it turns out there's even more of Shadowkeep to explore, and there's another route in via the church district. I took great pleasure backstabbing this Fire Knight, but I did not take great pleasure in fighting Commander Gaius. That charge attack he does is so annoying. The good news is the damage we do even with an uncharged Knight's Lightning Spear is awesome. The bad news is he can delete our health very quickly if we're not careful. This was one of the only fights where I didn't use the Aeonia, and it's because of that exact reason. But if you find an opportunity for a fully charged spear, that's nearly 6,000 damage, which is wild. It was a matter of he was either going to kill me quickly or I was going to kill him quickly. And thankfully he ended with me killing him with a few more charged spears in a row. A tough fight, but less annoying than the damn sunflower. Beyond him, we get a further 5 fragments, which is always nice to have. There were some other routes I found earlier, which I hadn't explored yet. First, I mowed down this ancient dragon man, then absolutely cheesed the hell out this stupid magma worm thanks to this small cave opening. Then, took on the real ancient dragon man. This turned out to be one of the rare boss fights where waterfowl dance was actually useful, so I took full advantage before lightning spearing him for the win. As I hadn't used it in a while, I felt like giving this Drake an ancient dragon lightning strike. I was kinda hoping for a one shot, but he moved around too much unfortunately. Still, I took him out pretty quick all things considered. Further up, there was a really annoying dragon fight with this Lancex clone, which doesn't really deserve much time in the video because it's shit. What does deserve time though is Egon and his inclusion in the fight with Bayle the Dread. I have plenty of time for Egon, and while I don't normally use summons, this guy's incredible dialogue is just far too good.
Curse you, Bayle!
I hereby vow you will rue this day.
Thanks to Egon distracting Bayle, I was able to land an Aeonia, but Bayle has such high resistance I had to land 2 to get it activated. Knight's Lightning Spear also did more damage than you might expect here. With that combined assault, we actually managed to poise break Bayle and then land a tremendous amount of damage, ending with me blasting him in the face with a lightning spear as he turned to face me to finish off this fight. Egon is 10 out of 10, would recommend for anyone fighting Bayle and you have a mate for life, well, until you go back to where his corpse was and find his joy in the afterlife. I needed a bit of a break from the intense bosses, so decided to fight this bear instead, which was, relaxing? Nah, not really, but I killed him anyway. Next up, the usual super cryptic FromSoft thing of having you do a random gesture in a random place to get to a new area. We killed some tree sentinels for the lols and took a nice relaxing stroll through the beautiful shaman village. Seriously, this place is so nice and colourful. We eventually did all the finger quest stuff to get to this underground ruin where we took out an NPC enemy with waterfowl dance. The next boss was Meteor, Mother of Fingers, which was, a bit chaotic to say the least. Good news though, we are standing in water, so Knight's Lightning Spear does some crazy damage. In fact, I bodied Meteor in just over a minute, getting a poise break and getting a really low as phase 2 began. This was one of the easier fights for me. So onto the last area of the map to explore for me, the ancient ruins of Rao, which I most definitely just mispronounced. This reminds me a lot of the latest Zelda game. The boss at the end is Quelag's cousin, Romina, Saint of the Bud. It goes without saying that our Ionia isn't gonna do anything here, but it's definitely time to crack out Burn of Flame again. Due to Romina's large body, you can get off tremendous damage, landing even an uncharged Burn of Flame. I nearly got her on one of my first attempts, but didn't manage to dodge this attack and died with her one hit from death. Next try though, I took it down in just 5 casts and did this fun boss fight. But wanna know something that's not fun? This. Yeah, they did another version of the Dancing Lion boss. But this one summons basilisks. Why? Just why? For this one, I summon my jars to distract him because if he summons ugly basilisks, I must summon my jars and defeat them with cuteness. I could then land the Ionia and switch to Burn of Flame, which I got some insane damage from with this cast here. Even though the next part of the fight with the basilisk got a bit chaotic, I was able to land one final cast to end this. Was the enjoy? I'm not sure, but I definitely hated it. So at least we can make it to the final dungeon of the DLC. Any realm? Any limb? Any realm? Any realm. I wanted to test out Romina's Rotten Butterflies incantation here, but turns out it's absolute shite. You're locked in place for so long and the damage is very weak, plus I never actually saw it proc rot on any enemies. But anyway, after taking care of Leda and friends with a barrage of waterfowl dances, it was time for the final boss of the DLC. You all know who it is by now. Promised Consort Radan. After seeing my husband try for nearly 20 hours to beat this boss on his knife's only run, I was pretty scared. So, good news! We can rot him, and Knight's Lightning Spear still does decent damage. At least in phase 1. In phase 2, he goes ballistic, with flashing lights and projectiles everywhere. So, how do we do this? Well, I'll let the fight speak for itself. And that's it, Babsa Jr. vs Elden Ring DLC. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, how about subscribing to be notified when I drop new videos and also support the channel. I hope you stick around, as I have a surprise for my next one where I might or might not have been inspired by a certain group of challenge runners and tried the impossible. I've been Babsa Jr., thanks for watching, and ciao for now.